as the game developers have said that giving Brood too much blue sixes, it would be bad for the game.
It's so spicy that we have this diversity here in Europe and that you are representing now Finland with Rhinar as the national champion.
That is the main reason we are playing Brood.
Let's imagine we are getting a set that is evolving around Brood and the Savage Lands. Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we are here with the first episode of Draw 4 with a lovely guest that just won Nationals. And Ilmari, please introduce yourself. Where are you from and what have you done in the last week?
Yeah, hello all. My name is Ilmari Lahtinen. I come from Finland. I won the Finnish Nage Championships last Saturday. The time we are recording is 1st of September, so it was a week ago, and I still can't really wrap my head around the fact that I am the national champion. I have played almost a year now, and the national championships were the biggest of tournaments that I have been to this day, so everything was exciting.
So you played in the finals against a player that also was in this channel before. How was the game for you, and do you know each other before?
Me and Juha, we played, I think it was at some road finals. It was, Juha played a big dragon, Dromai. Basically the game came down to the fact that we were flinging each other. Juha was throwing his dragons to me and I was throwing dice to him, and I threw an average of 5 at scabs for this game. What can you do against dice like that?
So Finland is known now for Rhinar because in the past also a player from your country had quite the success with Rhinar, and I got the chance to meet him too, Olli, in the calling Antwerp. Do you know Olli too?
Yeah, we have discussed this deck many times, and I think this deck is more for my taste of Rhinar. Me and Olli, we play both the Cheetah version of the deck. Of course, when Olli played at the Antwerp and there was no Warmonger's Diplomacy, I think Warmonger's Diplomacy makes it obsolete to run the red Paragon beatdowns, for example. So there is a couple of alignments for the deck list, but all in all I like the deck that I brought.
You are a Rhinar player all in all.
Yeah, I think I have tried many decks, and my first thought was to bring actually Bravo to the nationals, but since the work week was horrendous and I did not have time enough to test the deck, so I decided that hey, I know this Rhinar deck, all ins and outs of that deck, and I can play 10 hours quite tight. And I think that it is also one thing that you have to keep in mind, that you do not bring this mental overload to you by playing 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours in a deck that you are not really familiar with. So when we were at the finals, I was not mentally exhausted. Of course, I did a couple of mistakes at that game, but all in all, I felt very good about my game in that day.
Why did you actually choose Rhinar as your favorite hero? How did it come up that you are in love with this hero?
Yeah, I think I have not played many trading card games. I have dabbled in Magic, couple games. I cannot say that I have really played that game. There is things that I like in Magic, but I think I'm a mid-range player at the base level. That is what I like to do, and I know that the mid-range control and aggro, they do not fit Flesh and Blood as well as they do in Magic, obviously, but I think that Rhinar and Muslander are both the most closest to the mid-range as a playstyle. The deck that I brought has defensive options, it has aggressive options, it has defensive outs, it has aggressive outs, and it has kind of everything. Of course, it has also a deck of gambling, so that is also what I like to do.
All right, so when we later on look at your list, we will also see some of the cards that you actually took the win with. Like you already said, Scab Skin rolls were really huge pressure in the finals game against Juha. And I want to, before we jump into the deck, tell us a little bit more about yourself. Like you already mentioned, you played a little bit of Magic, but you are now playing Flesh and Blood for 1 year. So how is your playing going in Finland? Where are you playing? How regularly are you playing? And How many players are at your locals?
We do have a kind of small local community here in Tampere, Finland. We have only 5 to 6 really active players that do come to every week to the local arms. Then we have some 5 to 6 players that are not so frequent when they come. The game is small here. About myself, I have played all kinds of board games since I was a kid. I think the first real trading game that I played was this old Duel Masters, if somebody remembers. And then I have also played a couple of living card games from the Fantasy Flight games, Warhammer Invasion and the Android Netrun. I liked both of those games, but they have both died since. And of course there is a fan project. I think it was called runs the Android Netrunner and nobody. I think I also like the fantasy setting of Flesh and Blood pretty much more than I like Skiff, Steampunk or Cyberpunk. And that's why I chose Flesh and Blood as my main game. I think I am pretty competitive person. So I know that there is more competitive players, and if you want to compete at the highest level, I don't think Rhinar is the most obvious choice to bring to channels or something like that, but I like to be competitive and I like to have fun. Rhinar sits in the middle for me.
Yeah. That is exactly something that most of the players that I know that are playing competitively think about Rhinar. He's really like an underdog. He's not like a deck that you look at first when you think of a calling or the national championship. That's why I was really amazed to actually hear about your success with it. And then again, it's Finland that has now Rhinar on their top list. It's really amazing to see. And it's so spicy that we have this diversity here in Europe and that you are representing now Finland with Rhinar as the national champion. We also, before the interview, already touched a little bit on your matchups, but for all the viewers, can you please tell us what were your matchups and how did they come along in the tournament?
The first 3 rounds of the tournament were on Classic Constructed. My first game was against Kano. We have a couple of really good Kano players in Finland, and of course I met the other one first. I low rolled on my draws, and the opponent was able to present an early wildfire combo. I think it was somewhere at the round 4 or 5 or something like that. And I also did a couple of mistakes that game, but he was very good player. Then I won against Viserai, a rather new player who was very good also, but unfortunately my scab rolls were good and I was able to play to my outs. Then the third game was against last year's National Championship, Mikko Aksinen, on his Plunder deck. I got kinda lucky because the turn he drew Hold the Line against me, I intimidated that card off of Bloodrush Bellow random discard, and he was not able to really close the game before I did. The game was really tight. He's a great player. Unfortunately, when I hit my second Bloodrush Bellow, he drew a hand for 2 blocks, and as he tried to, I think it was Gold Snap he played from Arsenal, he drew another blue 2 block, and I was at that point at the kill range from the any kind arcane spell. It came to the RNG. At the draft portion of the tournament, I went to prison. I think there was 3 prison at the first pack, but third one dropped off the chain, and I was very lucky at the draft also. Not much to say about that. I think I am a rather good draft player. I have won many skirmishes this season on Monarch draft, but there is nothing to write home about Nationals draft other than I was able to put myself at the top 8. I think I was 6th of Swiss. Then came the Swiss. The first match was against my local Henrik Moilanen, with whom I had trained very hard a couple of weeks, and I knew that he was on a rather spicy Kano deck. And unfortunately for him, I drew all my Bloodrush early on, and he was forced to combo quite awkward plays, and I was left at 1 HP when I had a lethal attack on the stacks. I want that. Then against Bravo, Toni Savolainen on Bravo, I think he's a rather good Bravo player. Unfortunately, my deck is decked against Bravos at this season. I would not say the match was anywhere close. Unfortunately, I was able to draw Bladder's Bellow hands, and his deck presented a mainly red hand. He was not able to pressurize me with, say, Crippling Crushes or anything like that. I think there was only Starstruck with he was able to land with Crush, and I think I was able to go with another 6 attack to that, so there was no relevant on hits either. I managed to win that game by a stacked double Reckless, so that was nice. Then to the finals, I was against the aforementioned Juha Saarnilampi on his Big Dragon Dromai. The list was spicy as much as I have played Dromai. There was couple of new additions. He was playing, for example, the Holter lines from the set, and of course I intimidated that card hand off of a Bladder's Bellow, so that became a bit of a meme. And I threw dice at that game, mainly because I was forced also to play dice at that game. My pulping hands were very awkward. I had to go to his throat early on with pulpings. He did have all the defense reactions from Arsenal, and he was able to deny me of some value that way. Of course, there was one mistake when I saw the Holter line off of, I think it was revealed from Raven Rabble. It was that I should have known that there was a Holter line coming from Arsenal, and I went head on with my pulpings. Basically, at the time of third Bladder's Bellow, I knew that my Bladder's Bellows were all spent, my pulpings were all spent. I did have a rather awkward Tier Limp from Limp set up on stack, but I knew that I was several turn cycles away from that, and I was not, like in the Dromai matchup, you cannot really rely on Reckless Wings also, so I thought that my only outs were to either roll a 4+ or wait till I get to my Tier Limp from Limp, and by that time I think that I could not have get enough press to really kill him, so I went for the roll, and lo and behold, there was a 6 rolled on the stream also, and I was able to game off at that point. I think I got very lucky, but I was also able to play to my outs, and I did not do any obvious mistakes. That is also one thing that you have to keep in mind, that of course you can always throw dice, but then again, one thing that I think I am good at is like making sure that I know the hands and the game state that really are good to throw dice. You do not have to. I do not have to eat damage to throw dice, because that is a recipe for disaster.
Okay.
Yeah.
You already mentioned the stream where people can watch also the finals game between Juha and you, and I will link that one down in the description to let you check that out. But now let us actually come to your deck list and look how you actually managed to win this tournament and what cards you choose to put in the deck. So we are looking at your deck list here in February now, and on the top, like always, we are starting up with your hero card and with your equipment. Let us know. Most of the Rhinar players already know that lineup, but explain to all the non-Rhinar players why you choose to put up this combo here. Yeah.
First off, I do not really think that like there is the sideboard and main board. I am a bit of messy person, and the matchups are better spread on the matchups tab. But first off, from the Crown of Providence, there we have I really like that card on Rhinar. There is people that say that they can cut off that card since we have the Skull in Fleshback printed now. Yeah. I still like the ability to basically cycle your hand. That has came many times relevant. Also, it kills off Commander Conk values. Then there is Fyondal's Fight String Tunic. Of course stable. Also, when you pair that with Romping Club and a Full Pins or Wild Rides, you can get to like to card 11 values. Then we have my trusted gambler gloves. I never leave home without them. They're just best when you are scab skins. Nothing much more to say about them. Then we have a pair of mandible claws. They are crucial when you are going with Bladder's Bellow, and I think they give you this burst of damage at the end game, and they are here to pressurize your opponent. Then we have our trusted Capskin's leather. Not much to say. It is a 2 defense battle-worn and a huge upside.
Yeah.
Of course, it sometimes just kills your turns. Then if you would like to show us the rest of the equipments, I think it is best to start there to explain why and what I have. So if you scroll to the bottom, we have there the Barkbone strapping. Some people like the Hardened cross strap better. It is more reliable, but there is 2 things going on for Barkbone strapping. First off, it 1 block battle worn that comes relevant on the 5 matchup. It can deny 1 on hit relevant turn on the Kodachis or either Phoenix Flames.
Yeah.
And then again, it is not so reliable way to provide resources, but it is instant speed and it gives you resources, whereas the Hardened Crosstrap makes things costless. Against Kanos, for example, if they are going the Wildfire combo, they do not know how many resources you have to spend to AB their Wildfires. That game becomes relevant on the tournament also. Next thing, we have the beaten trackers. They are for the matchups. We do not get to run our Gambler's gloves. I really do not like running scab skins without Gamblers, so they are, of course, they are not huge on their output than scab skins are, but they have this added ability of not losing you the game. Also, I think the use under matchup and matchup in general is fast match, and you need just one time an extra action point.
Yeah.
And since it is also a trigger, you get to know if they, what is called in English, if they throw their Channel Lake Frigids or some other spells, and you get to know the game state at the time you are popping them off. Then we have Null gloves, pair them with Skull Horns, and you get a rather nice Arcane Barrier. I think it is very crucial. As I said, in our local and national meta there is many wizards. Actually, I was not expecting so many wizards. There were 6 people bringing Slander and 2 people bringing Kano to the tournament. I never leave home without Null Rune gloves and Skullhorn. Then we came to the Romping Club. It is needed against Katsus and Lexis. I have at this deck's matchup spreads. I think there is Azalea against which whom I used to run Romping Club. However, now that we have Skull and Flesh back and there is a meta Nurse Diplomacy for which Aleas have to change their decks, I think it is time to go with the Mandible Claws again for Azalea. But the club is awesome when you can pressurize, when you can expect to block with 2 or 3 cards and you get to swing with 4. It is all this 14 value at a turn cycle. But when you pair it with a Wings or Wild Rides, you get to card 11s, and sometimes the values are just wild. The next thing we have is Skull and Fleshback, a new legendary piece of head armor from the Dusk Till Dawn. That is wild card. It's just so good. Against many aggro matchups, the threat of Scowling is very great. I have against Levia, I have once denied them off of a chain ending Graveling group. I think it was something like the Skull and Fleshback defended for 2 and then it denied a Graveling roll for 9 or something after a Bladder spell. So it's just wild when it pops up. And of course it is clunky against Lexi because she can drop her hand down to Arsenal at an instant speed. So that is also a argument for the Providence in that matchup. But I really like Skull in Flashback.
Okay, and then, like you already said, Skullhorn is your last inclusion for the equipment.
Yeah.
And
yeah, basically AB2.
Yeah. Does it come up that you use the action effect of Skullhorn?
Not really. I have once or twice in my career used it. It is basically when, misses the wildfire combo by a mile and I get to a rather awkward hand that is like all red sixes, then I have once or twice used the action there.
I think it's very interesting to see now from your perspective because, as you mentioned, Rhinar is a hero that has a lot of endurance during the game, but you can also switch up in like bringing in beaten trackers and get a little bit more speed into the game. So I think you're looking at Rhinar for your potential hero. There are quite a few different strategies that you can pick from and get a very different taste depending on the meta that you are in. And you already talked about this in a lot of fashions that the Finland meta is really interesting. You have a lot of wizards, but to get a little bit more context for the viewers, tell us a little bit more about how many players were attending nationals and
Yeah, so it was a 32-player tournament.
Yeah. Okay. Let us now come to the main deck. And as for your deck list, you have 48 cards that you usually put in, and then cards can come on top depending on the matchup.
Yeah, to start the list, we have common and course, really nothing to say about there. A nice with huge on-hit and tech against those pesky defense reactions. Then we have backhunts both in red and blue. I think the card says that it is a 6-power attack, 4-power attack at blue, and it has stapled on intimidate when you play it. Then we have a Savage Feast. It is also very interesting card. You can play it for 1 resource and you have to discard a card for additional cost, but if that is a 6, you can draw a card. So basically, if you play that off of Tunic counter, you get 1 card 6 at the best. Then we have Skullcrack, which is a rather vanilla attack of 6, costs 2 to play, but basically you want to discard that card at random every time you are playing it. I have fell in love with this card. Many Rhinar players have complained that it should have been a yellow 3 cost or something like that to boost the power level because our resource cards are rather lacking, but I think the card is just so good at yellow 3 it would be busted. So I like my cards to be strong, but not so strong that they are pushing the limits of the game. Speaking about pushing the limits of the game, the next card we have on this list is the Swing Big from Witty. Somebody has said that it is pretty much for the game to handle. It costs 2, attacks for 8. It says that if it does not hit, defending hero creates a quicken token. They're huge upside, but when it comes to you for 10 at all turns is a really nasty hit. One of the power cards of the deck, really. And then we come to my favorite of the brute class, the Beast Within. It is just, when it really hits, it is gas. Of course, I have once taken 8 damage off of the text. It says that if it is put in the graveyard from anywhere other than the combat chain, you can banish top card of your lose life. If it is 6 or more, you put it on your hand, otherwise you repeat the process. It is gas against standards, it is gas against Umel matchups. It is just very good. The mathematics of that card is just through the roof. The best case scenarios when you discard it off Bladder Spell, it is just that the opponent knows he is in trouble at that point. Speaking of trouble, the next card on this list is the Trusted Bladder Spell. That card is the main reason we are playing Brute. It is just so great. It says that for additional cost of discarding your random card off of your hand, get basically a +2 attack points for all of your brute attacks list. And then if that card you discarded was a 6 or more, you get to draw 2 cards and Bladder's Bellow gains go again. So you are going to align that card with a blue and a 6 power add to do the most of damage, and when you can discard a beast within or skull cracked card, it just cracked. Yeah, nothing much else to say about this card, it is just so good. Then we get to the stinkers of this deck, I like to say, but they have their place. They are calls, ups, and smash instincts. They are yellow 6 attacks that all cost 3. Has a rather nice text on it. When you defend, you get to basically save up your deck, and if there is a 6 power at the top of the deck, you get to leave it. Otherwise, it is bottom. Since we are running so many random discards like Pulpings, Wild Rides, Sterling from Limp, it is very nice upside. I have many times been at the point that I need to know if there is a 6 ghost card at the top of my deck, so I can go ham with like Pulpings or Wild Tenty next to cards.
Actually, I need to come in there because before we come to the next card, Pack Call is interesting because this card from the starter deck, the classic battles, and we haven't seen this card yet in another pitch color. I mean, it's yellow, it has the 6 attack. If this card would come up in the red strip version with 7 attack, possibly, would you run this card in red too?
I really do not know. It is mainly for discards and to defend, but I could not see that being playable. I want my reds to be at 2 cost maximum, so I do not think so. Blue, you could say that it could, you could play it at the you could put the blue back calls off of this deck, so that is one card that I could see playing.
Alright, then let's go on with the deck.
Then we have the red up smashing instinct. Nothing really to say about those cards. They cost too much, but they are least bad 6s at this point. Unfortunately, we do not have many blue 6s, as the game developers have said that giving through too much blue 6s, it would be bad for the game. As a Rhinar player, I am okay with the fact that we do not have so many great resource cards. It is one side of this puzzle. Like, I think the Rhinar decks are always these fascinating puzzles around that you have to really balance those 6s and you have to balance your resources. If there would be another 6 attack blue that could really destabilize or let's say it could put the power level so up that it would not be funny. I like playing powerful decks, but I really do not think that I would like to play overpowered decks, so I'm rather fine with the situation we have right now. So speaking about resource cards, the blue suite is kinda what it's always been. There is these barracks at blue, they have a rather nice text. They come with Intimidate, and the text says that if your next brute attack is defended by less than 2 non-equipment, it gains +2. Basically, at the early game you pitch it, and at the late game you have the added ability to disrupt the opponent's beats defense options. Yes. And at the same vein, the next card we have is the blue card, the High Roller. Basically, it says that you intimidate once. If you have rolled a 6 of a die this turn, you get to intimidate twice. Sometimes the text is relevant, but basically it is a blue card that blocks for 3. Nothing much else to say about that. Then we get to rather spicy cards next. So the next card in the line is Hold the Line, a new card from Dusk Till Dawn. I like this card really much. It is really the card we needed. It blocks for 2, it is a blue, so it is nice anyways. And the text says that if the opposing hero has drawn 2 or more cards this turn, you get to prevent another 3 damage that would be dealt to you this turn. And a really nice bonus is that it cancels off those pesky on hits. and especially on the matchups where the other player is going to present either Blood Spell, Art Wars, or Three of a Kinds. It is very nice when it hits. Still, I have tried running in 3. I do not really think third one is good. It feels sometimes really clunky in your hand. And when there is also some cards that say that you can play defense reactions, you do not really want too much of those. Then we can go to my second most favorite brute card of all times, the Reckless Wing. That is just, I love this card so much. I love this card on the first turn of the game and the last turn of this game. It is so nice when you get to block for 3, and if you are going second, you get to block for... Sorry, if you're going second, you get to block for 4, and also you get to do damage and you get to basically start the game at that point with 3 damage on board, so really nice. And you can also close the games off of a Reckless Wing, and I think especially on Rhinar the game is just so good. I have just started to play Levia, also I don't think this card can be really played in Levia, but yeah, that card is just so good. Also for defense, sometimes cancels a on hit.
And like you said, you were actually closing out a game in your Nationals run-up here with a double Reckless Swing.
Yeah.
We saw that last year Nationals season 2. I'm not sure which country it was exactly. I think Indonesia. But yeah, that was because a really powerful card. That the 2 most cards that you're talking about and that most Brute players really love are coming from Welcome to Rathe, the first set of Flesh and Blood, and still they are so immersive in their play out and their power level.
Yeah, so if we continue, we have the next card we have is Tear Limb from Limb. It is a non-block and it is rather spicy one, but I have fell in love with this card last month or so. So the text says when you play it, you draw a card that you discard. If a discarded on random was a 6 power, your next attack against plus X, where X is the attack's base power. So you get to basically, if you align this card with 1 blue, 1, like for example, if you get to opt and there is a 6 cost card in the top of your deck, it can sometimes be played as discards blue, a tunic counter, and you get to play a swing big for 16 from your arsenal. I have not done it so many times, but every time it comes off, it is just so devskis. It has this ability to sometimes end games, and as well as being a blue resource strip, it can be set up at this so that when you are playing against some slower decks and they got to fatigue plan, you can basically stack this card and present a lethals this way.
So this card you are not running at 3, you wouldn't change it.
Basically because of the fact that it does not block. Yep. So sometimes it is really clunky.
And
then we come to the last card. Every deck ever runs 3 copies of it. It is 6 power and it is blue, blocked for 3. Enough said, I think. Yeah, nothing much more to write home about this. Yeah, then we cut to our sideboard options. First off, there is an Alpha Rampage at the top. I just love that card. It is good at first turn when you get to intimidate twice and you get to basically make at least 3 damage through 2 blocking cards, and you get another card to your arsenal. It is really great, and you do not even have to throw scabs at that point. Yeah. Also, it is very good when it comes up from if you get to align that card with a limb from limb. It has this ability to end game at the spot. But yeah, then we have I think those deck cards of Amnesia. Amnesia says that if it hits, opponents lose their names. Also cards and tokens, to be precise. So it's there to combat with ninjas, basically Katsu. Basically shoots up their whole turn. Then I run also that card against Bolton, because it shuts off the Luminescence and Saber combo. Sometimes it is really needed. The Bolton is not an easy matchup for, mainly because we do not present so many relevant on hits. Then again, also it is a good card against Vincent. You do not run often against Vincent, but when you do, you really like that you do have a option for that also. Yeah. Then we come to, I think, my favorite gen card, Enlightened. It is just so good at the last thing I did before the tournament was that I bought the third copy in for the aggro matchups. The Enlightened Strike used to be another energy potion, combat wizards, and I was not thinking to see so many wizards that I saw. And when I got there, the third copy, I think it managed to secure me a Viserai victory, but then against some other decks I would have liked to have another blue one in my deck. But if you get to align that card with the Scabskin Leather, it is just so, and at the end game it is really great. Of course it is not 6 power at the baseline, sometimes you unfortunately discard it off of things or wild rides. A little downside to be sure. Yeah. Then we have this Erase Phase. It is deck cards against Talent Heroes, Bolton, Fi, also Ice Heroes. There is one very good Ice Lexi player in Finland and many Icelander players. I think I want to present rather good on hit against those element heroes. Also, I have to mention that it shuts off whole turns of dash, and many times I have found that the dash player is going for the boost game plan, and it really can deny the dash player of the whole turns if it lands. Yeah.
Yes, so we are at the horizon, we are seeing the next set bright lights that will bring a lot of new cards to the mechanologists. Do you think this is a card that everybody should have for that meta that is coming up?
Absolutely. Of course, the card has this downside that it can block only for 2. Sometimes that is very relevant, but I think that the card, if it 3 block, it would be busted. But I think Rhinar is also one of the better decks to run Erase Phase because it serves also the purpose of a not 6 power attack, and it is sometimes just a random discard fodder. Yeah. But I am looking to the Bright Light sets with my playset of Erase Phase and thinking that maybe I am finally able to play 3 copies of this again.
All right, then we are coming to a little bit more defensive package in your sideboard.
Yeah. The defense reaction of my choice is the Fate Foreseen. As we have seen by now, we do not run Sink Billows in this deck, mainly because we have other great defense reactions that are on the main board, the blue ones, and the opt is very crucial in this deck, more so than the ability to cycle your deck. Of course, that sometimes also comes relevant, but for that you have also the headpiece on your armor. But sometimes the just wins games. You get to check that there is a 6 power attack on the top of your deck, and you know that you will land a Wild Ride or Pulping for instance. Yeah. Then for another defensive card, I have 1 copy of Respite. I have sometimes run a second copy of this deck, but again, I did not think there was to be so many wizard players, and I decided to put this card to 1 copy. I think 1 copy is fine because you sometimes want that to your Bravo matchup to be another defensive option, but I felt that 2 copies of Oasis is clunky against Bravo. Yeah. Then we get to the 2 reliable role players of my Ping and Wild Ride. They both draw and discard a random card when they are attacking. That is sometimes really crucial. The effect is not an additional cost, so sometimes there is cards that say that you have to do something at the additional cost, but this is not of those cards. And when opponent can react before the random discard is done, sometimes it is really crucial to know. But basically they are here to give us an extra action point. There is also this card Bare Fangs that has this clause of drawing and discarding a random card. And if you discard a 6 attack card, you get +2 attack value at that point. But I think the action points are more crucial to our game plan. Of course, wild rights and pings, as well as their limb from limbs, are non-blockers. They can feel sometimes very clunky. I think it was this morning, I played game at Tal where I had like 4 red cards at my hand, and 3 of them was non-blockers, so that felt clunky, but sometimes that is brute life. Yeah, and the last card in our sideboard is the Trusted Energon. I never like to leave home without at least one. It is just against the wizard matchups. Also, I think I used that card on Woundset. I have yet to play a Woundset game on paper, but at least you really want every blue card that you can jam into your deck.
Okay. So that was your whole list of cards that you played at the Finland National Championship. And I just like to ask 2 final questions for the deck list before we move on to a few more questions on the tournament and your view on Flesh and Blood. Yeah. And that is, when I talk to a few other Rhinar players, some choose to also put in more barraging beatdowns. Please evaluate a little bit more like your view on barraging beatdown, and would you choose to put in more in the future or not?
Yeah, barraging beatdown has historically been one of my favorite cards in Rhinar. However, now that we have the Vanguard's Diplomacy, too many attack action cards feels clunky. Also, I think you have this option to run 3 copies of red barraging beatdowns, but it competes of the same space that Enlightened Strike does, and I just think Enlightened Strike is far more flexible, as beatdown is flexible card, as you can always present a 2-card a 7 hand against those aggressive matchups. But of course, if the opponent decides to block them with, say, two blockers, you lose some of its value. But of course, barraging beatdowns act as endgame finisher if you happen to need one. But I think I have put all the red and blue barraging beatdowns off my list since the introduction of Vanguard's Diplomacy.
All right, and then my last question to your deck list is actually, like you said, there were 32 players in the Finland National Championship, and you have quite a fixed meta that you know from your hometown also. When a player looks at this list and your view on Rhinar, what would you say to those persons when they are looking at their local meta? How would you give them some on how to evaluate it? It's worth playing Rhinar or not?
Rhinar is there to compete with slower decks. For example, it was good against Oldhim, and it is good against Bravo. Of course, there is ways that slower decks can compete with Rhinar. For example, Big Dragon Dromai has this option to just fatigue you out of the game, and sometimes that is relevant. I think there is another builds for Rhinar that do not have so many these random discard cards, but I like to play this random discard deck more often than those. And I would not say that Rhinar is in a good spot of the meta right now. We are trying to race, but there is more able race cars there. To put it towards there is the Lexi, which we have really bad matchup. I think I can sometimes win Lexi, but many times it just rolls me over. I have some 35 to 40 win percent to the Lexi at Talishar, and I think it is so high mainly because I have played against not so great players. Of course, sometimes you get to roll all 6s from your skips and you win by that, but Lexi can also hire very badly. But I would not be scared of Rhinar. As said, there will be another set for the mechanologist, and I think we are very well positioned to combat those heroes, as we have the Arc Smashes and Erase Phases. I have not used Arc Smashes in ages. I am very looking forward to bring those back to my deck.
Okay, so I want to get your view on future with Rhinar. So the next set is for mechanologists, but let's imagine we are getting a set that is evolving around Brood and the Savage Lands. What would you expect to be in that set, or what would you hope to see?
That is a good question. I have not thought about that. I would like another Brood hero. I would like to see how they could maybe make a talented Brood hero. Some people have said that there should be a shamanistic earth. I think it would be put mainly because it would have the access to one of seeds, which is this card. I do not really think what I would hope about this set. I really hope that they can provide support to Brood as a class, but I also hope that they do not break anything so that they do have to ban cards, for example. However, when you mentioned that a Savage Lands set, I would say that I would be most pumped about seeing the lore about Savage Lands and what other creatures there could be. Could there be, for example, other whole new classes in that region? Could there be more warrior support, for example, as there is the Classic Battles Rhinar vs Dorothea box, where there was a lore booklet that has tales about how these warriors go in to defend the border regions from Solana against the rest of Savage Lands. That would be what I would look forward the most.
All right. I just want to touch on one of your mentions a little bit deeper, and that's like the shamanic hero that we might see that some people are speculating on. Do you think that would be a hero that could use magic power like the arcane damage that we saw in Flesh and Blood yet? So it would be like a mixed class like the...
I could see them doing that. One thing that I personally like in the Aria set is the channel cards that have this add layer that they bring to the deck construction, is that you need these talent or element cards several rounds. I could really see like huge channel cards presented for the shaman that could really feel unique to that you need really these good talent and class cards to really bring the best out of those cards. I know that many people do not like the added upkeep on those cards, but I really feel that it is something that it is really thematic for this game also.
All right, let's see when we get a Savage Land set, and we will talk about that again. Yeah, my last question actually is for the end of this year. Will we see you in Barcelona?
I have just received the approval for my vacation at the end of the November. I am just about to check the flights and book a hotel for me. I have not decided yet which deck I will bring there. I hope really that I could bring Rhine, but my options are quite open. I have just been starting to learn how to play, and also I like to play many decks on Talisar, and I have quite a collection going on, and I really do not know which deck I would bring there, but one thing is for sure, and the Rhinar would be the most awesome. But also if the Lexi is so huge part of the metagame there, I do not really think that is really feasible.
Yeah, I would love to meet you there and see you play on Rhinar. For the end of the video, do you want to shout out?
Huge shout outs for my boys Henrik Moilanen, with whom I practiced for the nationals, and also for Jesse, who dropped off the nationals. The Finnish nationals were open invites. I did not do so well at the Roto National season, and I was distracted from the open invitational, so I was left at the waitlist, and I think it was somewhere 1 week before the nationals that I get the place to be there, so that was nice. Also a huge shout out for another aforementioned Finnish runner player, the man himself, Olli Saarinen, who top 80 Antwerpen calling. A great guy.
Yeah. That's for sure. And if you want to check out the profile from Olli, it is also on the channel. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to the video, staying on this long. Comment down below if you have any questions for Ilmari or on the Rhinar deck. And we see you at the next video. Ilmari, thank you so much for your time.
Bye-bye. Thank you.